Saying yes can be a strength, but any strength that you overuse can turn on you like a double-edged sword.
So I am here joined with Princess Castleberry. And let me tell you what. So we did initially meet at SEMA. And one, it was your outfit and your lipstick because absolute fabulousness all the way around. Like, talk about the best personal branding anywhere you go. But when we really started diving into, we were both leading sessions. And so we started talking about what you were talking about and leading on your framework. And there's something about it that is so relative to everyone that is tuning in today, right? So whether you are a leader, whether you're an event marketer earlier on in your career, whether you're a field marketer, whether you're, at the director level, whether you're planning trade shows or planning events, we're all yes people, right? We're saying yes, we're taking on so much and we're doing the doing, right? We're executors, we're master strategists, we're trying to meet and exceed every leadership expectation out there. And there are some things that we have zero control over in terms of outcome. But at the end of the day, many that I talk to are on the brink of burnout. So I dedicate this episode specifically to all of those, and you know who you are, who I'm thinking of that are making a change in their career, that have had health issues because of stress. Those are all important things to talk about. So, Princess, I bring you on to really kind of dig into this, and I'd love for you to tee up your framework and what it's really all about.
And so I created a leadership framework called Live, Lead, and Build Leverage. And I created it to supplement all the other frameworks out there, right? So this is not my attempt to blow up, the 10 major frameworks. When you think of the Gallups, the Korn Ferries of the world, those frameworks teach fantastic leadership competencies. But I saw these gaps, right? I saw these gaps that were missing some of the foundational skills that leaders need to build their capacity. And so in the framework, there's 6 parts. And the main part, the through line throughout the entire Live, Lead, and Build Leverage is this concept of identifying the truth in your triggers. Now, there's the other 5 parts. I'll just run through them quickly and we can talk about them as we have time. But after you identify the truth in your triggers, you have to align internally. That's within yourself, within your teams. Third, you have to disrupt your natural tendency toward burnout and decision fatigue, that chronic stress factor. And then fourth, we talk about this concept in the framework, building belongers and believers. And the reason why it's important, and belongers, I know is not a word for all the grammarians out there. It's my word. That's the word according to Princess.
It's
And
Princess's word, it's still a word
it's
then.
my word. I call it, that's AP status, the world according to Princess. And so belongers are important because you have to make people belong to you to feel like they can believe in you, because that is how leaders build influence. There is a fifth concept in the framework called eliminate conflict waste. Now, conflict waste is the time, energy, and resources that we lose when conflict is escalated unnecessarily, or it is escalated too quickly, avoided, or mismanaged. That is what conflict waste is. And the last part of the framework is that we integrate technology with discipline. And so that through line again, though, is knowing what your triggers are, because triggers are what take leaders, great leaders who are educated, who are prepared and ready. Triggers are what take you from being intentional and acting in your best accord to unintentional behaviors. And we know that
Mhm.
unintentional behaviors create results that you don't want.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we have all these different things that are coming at us and the decisions that we have to make and the problems we have to solve and all of the yeses that we're saying, and then now we're like, okay, how are we going to make this happen? All of that leads into our emotional reactivity to how we're handling these things. How are we staying organized and focused? How are we not over feeling in one area and under feeling or under focusing in another? But all the while, I think what I love the most about this framework is the fact that if you can really take this and turn it into tactical components that you can apply on a day to day, when
Mhm.
all of these different things are coming at you, it does allow you to have more mental capacity, which allows more time in general to
It does.
handle or do the things that you really truly love. And I think
Absolutely
that
true.
that's very powerful.
And
So,
and the reason why that's so important, I mean, honestly, is you just hit the nail on the head. I believe that leaders are in a capacity crisis. And it has nothing to do with our intelligence or our willingness to do great jobs for our constituents, right? Our constituents, our clients, we want to do the best, but we are literally just running out of capacity. And we need capacity to solve conflict. We need capacity to make better decisions. We need capacity to protect our health. And so that's exactly the premise and the background of the framework is that these are all capacity builders, right? They free you
yeah.
up, free up your time, your energy, and your peace.
So when you can't control the other things that are happening at you, you have the ability with this framework to really control what you can to create more capacity to handle it. This is why I love this. So digging
Absolutely.
into this a little bit more, especially that
Okay.
first piece, and I think that this is really the core component to our conversation today is the truth in the trigger. So when you say the truth is in the trigger, what does that mean for those that are constantly operating under pressure?
The truth is in the trigger means that the story that is behind why you behave the way you do is where you will find all of your solutions, essentially. When you are being plagued by something, when you're bothered by something, if you tell the truth, if you can get to the truth behind what's making you feel that way, then you can solve it. It becomes solvable. Now, this is what I won't say. I will not say it becomes immediately solvable. It becomes solvable, but some things that you've been triggered by take real work. So I would tell you, while I have solutions and I will share plenty of them with you to get you on the road to real healing, real recovery, these are not hacks. Okay. We have to get to a point as a society and a culture where we stop hacking everything. Hacks are great in the kitchen. Hacks are great. I love a good life hack, to keep make my pants cinch at the waistline or keep my lipstick on all day. I love a good hack, but you cannot hack your mental health. You cannot
Oh,
hack
that's so
your
powerful.
breathing.
You really can't.
You cannot hack your mental health. And so you shouldn't because it's the most precious thing. It's the center and the cornerstone of everything that you have. And so the truth is in the trigger gives you an opportunity to really confront what is behind your in some of your intentional behaviors, but mostly what's behind your unintentional behaviors, because it's those unintentional moments that keep pulling us out of alignment. And when I say alignment, I got to break this down for everybody. I tell everybody in life, this is the quickest way to start thinking through your triggers in a really practical way. All of us want to be on our A game, but let me tell you how I define the A game. Your A game is your alignment game. And these are the things that you have to
Mm.
align. You have to align your affirmations, the words that literally play in your head about yourself, the things that you say to yourself about yourself, and especially what comes out of your mouth, because that is most powerful. So you have to align your affirmations, your attitude, your affections, your affiliations, and then your actions. When you think about being on
Ooh,
top of
that's so
your A game,
powerful.
that's real. That's how I live my life. When you
That
think
really is.
about
It gives me
being on
chills.
your A game, that is what the A game is. Now, think about the things right now that disturb all the triggers that disturb your affirmations. That first morning thought that, oh, I don't look good enough. My hair isn't right. My curls are going, to the east when I want them to go to the west. All these things, all these criticisms you hear as soon as you wake up, those you have to get to the truth behind those triggers. The triggers that separate you from having a good attitude and a positive vibe and being that person that you want to be, that pulls you into other feelings and a different projection out to the world. The things that take you out of connection with the people deep down in your heart you want to be with the most. You want to be with people, but you're finding yourself feeling isolated, feeling pushed to the sides. Those triggers behind that, whatever those stories are. See, I don't know them. I'm good at helping people bring them to the forefront, but I don't know your truth unless you tell it. Okay. Your affiliations, right? And your affections, when those get disrupted, those are the triggers. So if you just think about your A game and what throws you off your A game, you can identify your triggers. And I got other tools, I got tools for days, but that's
Well,
the
last
basic
time
stuff.
I want to jump in here and say that this is what, I mean, this is where we're getting deep, right? And real. So, everyone listening, feel free to be vulnerable here. This is totally a safe space to chime in. But so much of how we show up at work is personal, right? So many
It
want,
is.
and this is something that you and I talked about before, is this so common. It's this separation of being professional. Yes, of course you want to be professional, but the root of who we are, we're human. Guys, we're all
Yeah,
human. We all bleed. We all have bones. We all have muscle. We're
that's right.
human. And so we have feelings. We have this multitude of triggers. Now, when we did talk, I don't know if you want to share this, you had this really cool chart of all of the
Oh, I
different
do.
ideas of triggers because it really does impact on a day-to-day basis. If I'm feeling overwhelmed in one area, why? What is that trigger? Is it because of
What
something
is
that's
that?
happening at home? Is it something that maybe historically I've continued to have to live through, day in and day
Mhm.
out in other jobs, right? So you really have to go back into the root cause of everything.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share that. I'm gonna pull this up for everybody. Bear with me for a moment. First, I'll show it to you like this. Let's go here. And hopefully, Cody, can you see my screen?
Yeah, yep. If you just click
Okay.
present, you should be able to go
Yes.
full screen. Perfect.
Perfect.
Looks
Perfect.
beautiful.
So this is like high level overview, and then I'll show you a deeper version of this. But when we talk about triggers, because triggers can be so complex, right? And people don't know sometimes where to start. So when somebody says, "Well, what triggers you?" That's like saying, tell me about yourself, right? Do you want me to tell you about me, 45-year-old me, or 25-year-old me, or 5-year-old me? I have a long story. I got a long history. So when I have people talk about their triggers, I help you group your triggers in these three, really the first three ways, because the fourth category impacts us all. So we all have personal triggers, right? That's the weight that we carry with us. Those are those stories. That's the identity. I am a Black woman from the west side of Detroit, born and raised, oh so proud. I am a person who speaks multiple languages. I am a professional speaker. I am 4'10", so I'm short. You know what I'm saying? I am lots of things. I'm a wife, I'm a mother. It's all those identifiers, but it's a lot of other things that you may not see about me. I am also neurodivergent. I am also a person who gets, really engrossed in the news and things like that. There's so many things that are triggering to me because of my identity. I was also raised by a single teenage mother. There's
So
all these things
powerful.
that shape my identity, right? And I carry that stuff
Mhm.
whether people see it or not, right? And then we think about these global triggers. Global triggers impact us all, but they impact us differently. There are surrounding contexts, there are the isms and the phobias. It's what's happening in our politics on a normal year. Okay, we're in an abnormal kind of space and time. So I'm not talking about 2025 politics. I'm talking about politics in general and the economy, cultural shifts, but the isms and phobias that shape our identity. Those are the global triggers. And then we talk about these professional, like what you're talking about. What happens at work, right? The conflict, the misalignment, the over somebody over talked you in a meeting, somebody, just rubbed you the wrong way. What we fail to realize though, Cody, is that before we ever get to work, we got to pass through. That's why I love this graphic. It's like a concentric circle and a rainbow at the same time. You got to pass through the colors of life before you ever get to work. And you're taking all of that
Yes.
with you. So that conflict that you think you're having with Cody, Princess and Cody, are crossing words at work. It's not that. It's that Cody over not you, Cody,
So
not
much deeper.
not this Cody. Clearly, this is my friend. But you know what I'm saying? I'm using you as an example that if you
Yes,
overtalk
use me
me
as
in
an
a
example.
meeting, if you overtalk me in a meeting, yes, I might find that to be generally rude, but in my mind, in my lived experience, I might be conflating that with experiences of racism. I might be thinking about office politics, hierarchy, relationships, and I may also be thinking about the fact that I had a mother who was exceptionally strong-willed, which meant I got overtalked a lot as a child. What we have to stop doing in the workplace, especially, is bringing all of that to bear in the moment that we get triggered. And the only way to do that, to stop doing that, and to have real proper context is to explore the truth behind your triggers. The more conscious and self aware you are, the more in control and leverage you can build. And that last category can be mega. Those are the mega triggers. These are things that impact and disrupt, as human beings, disrupt our way of life and our way of thinking. September 11th, that's a mega trigger, okay? For some people, the current politics, that those are mega triggers. The pandemic was a mega trigger. It didn't just happen, it was something that just completely altered and shifted how we think about
Yes.
life. And so that's at a high level. At a really deep dive level, this is what you saw. When we
It's like an
really,
iceberg, right? You just see the top, but really underneath, it's so much
yes,
deeper.
yes, these are, this is my attempt. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is based off of 22 years of enterprise risk management, wellness, and leadership experience around the globe. This is what I've seen people go through personally, globally, and inside of the workplace. And what we have to start doing is having a reckoning, really, where we connect these ideas to each other. We stop just reacting to what a policy change or something happening at work, how the gatekeeping of our hating coworker, like how that made us feel. We have to start connecting it and understanding the weight behind it so that we can decide how we really want to behave in the workplace. We have a
Sure.
tremendous impact. Yeah.
It's all about how we show up, right? If you're about to face maybe a hard conversation with leadership, you might be concerned about what you may assume to be bad reactions because 3 years ago you had a similar situation at a different organization and those
Hmm.
leaders weren't as emotionally stable, right?
That's
And
right.
so you're carrying those triggers. You
Yep.
might be dealing with family issues at home, and so
Right.
coming to work every day, something I see a lot is, and I know I've mentioned this before, is that everyone's saying yes because they feel like if they say no, that they're failing those
Hmm.
around them. What
That's
is
right.
the inner child there that needs to be healed? Right. And,
Yeah.
so it gets
Yeah.
emotional when everyone really starts to have to peel back the layers of why am I feeling this way? Why am I
Mhm.
reacting to this way? Or why am I kind of spinning my wheels and obsessing over this one thing right now when there's all these
Yeah.
other things, or my to-do list just feels overwhelming, right? Or, but you can't delegate, you don't know how to. So I think that
Exactly.
those are all the really
There's so
powerful
many
triggers.
layers. There's so
I
many
know.
layers behind it, but just tackling the one around always saying yes, even when it's to your detriment. You got to step back. And a lot of times, this again, I'm not trying to stereotype or typecast anyone, right? Some of the examples that I give are general and they might not fit your fact pattern, but that's where your truth comes into it. But generally speaking, when you have people that are always saying yes, it's because somewhere along their childhood and their young adulthood, they learned that being helpful translated into being loved, it translated into approval, and in some cases, it meant their safety. Me being agreeable meant that they stayed safe, right? Or sometimes it just meant that they got validated over and over and over again. And so all your triggers don't have to always come from a negative place. I just want everybody to understand that. Like I get triggered if I smell warm baked chocolate cookies, okay? I could have just eaten lunch and I'm still triggered. I still want to eat again, not because I'm hungry, but because it's nostalgic, right? Cookies
Sure.
taste good and my brain remembers that. Your brain, way more than it remembers pleasure, enjoyable experiences, your brain will hold on to pain because your brain's job is to make sure you don't die, right? And so your brain does everything it can to protect you and hold on to thoughts. And so when you're always saying yes, you got to think about it. Society reinforces that because if you're saying yes, that means you're helpful and highly driven. You're the supportive, you're the go-to person. But it can very easily graduate into burnout and resentment. And again, this is where I have to impress upon everybody on this call that the onus is on you to recognize I am reaching my capacity. And you start to reach it, and I'll tell you some subtle signs, right? Some of the subtle signs of starting to reach your capacity is like that headache that won't go away, the those neck and shoulder cramps. Your body
Attention.
actually, the tension, your body talks to you first. The eye twitching that you try to, every time it starts, you just go like this. No, no, no. Your eye twitches like that because your body is experiencing too much internal stress. That's one of the
Wow.
reasons, right?
Small
And
signals.
so small signals, the body gives off all kinds of little signals, this need of wanting to escape. And I'm not talking about being introverted, even though I'm a shameless extrovert. I don't know anything about being introverted, but I got a lot
I
of
do.
introverted friends. I'm an introvert whisperer. And so all of my best friends are introverted, but I know how to pull them out. I know how to pull them out before they go back home. But I digress. The point is, your body will start to give you signals before your mouth ever admits what's going on. So, paying attention to your body, how do you pay attention to the body? Mindfulness, meditation, the stuff you hear all over the internet every day. It's not cliche, it's not hokey, it's real. The more, if you work out, you breathe, naturally slow your heart rate down, just literally deep breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It starts to calm you down, but we don't breathe. We don't calm down. We feel extra tired and we press forward anyway. And we ignore all of
And we,
that.
we just think that we can push through. It's like having an injury and still walking on it. It,
Exactly.
it it's not going to get any better. You're just going to make it worse for sure.
And it's no different than saying yes. Saying yes can be a strength, but any
Mhm.
strength that you overuse can turn on you like a double-edged sword.
So powerful. And I think what I love about your list of triggers too is it's not just us in the room that have them in the professional space. So when you're facing, other conversations and decisions and working with others in general in any capacity at work, know that they too have their own. And so it does allow you, or at least
Yeah.
for me personally, when I'm in a situation where somebody else is reacting a certain way, rather than me being equally reactive to it, I'm much more thoughtful of it. I'm like, oh, I wonder where they're going with this and why, the more of like, tell me more about what's frustrating you. What is it that
Yeah.
you're really wanting to get out of this conversation? And why are you feeling the way that you're feeling? Some will feel comfortable talking about that and some don't. And if it's, someone above you, you would hope that you have that relationship where you guys can be honest and vulnerable. I also recognize that not everybody works in a space
No.
with other humans that are just as vulnerable and free to be able to talk about those things. Christine says in the chat, she said, it's like being told you are the hardest working person on the team when you realize that's not the reputation you want. You want to be the smartest working person on the team. Ah,
Mm,
I like that because you're really
I
being
love that.
self-reflective. Yes. And
I really love
Katie
that.
asked a question. Yeah, I know,
You have to
right?
say that though. And I think that to that point, I love that comment. But if people are perceiving you in a way that doesn't fit your brand and the vibe that you're trying to put out, you have to correct them. And you have to, when they say, oh, you're the hardest working, you tell them, you know what? That sounds great, but I'm the smartest working. That's who I am. You have to say it. Just like every other brand says over and over, Nike, just do it, just do it. You know these logos and slogans and all that stuff because they say it over and over again. When we hear something that doesn't match up with our ego and who we are, sometimes we shrink and we recess into being misunderstood. That's your chance to correct people. Go ahead, honey.
Well, you can't control what people think of you,
Mm-mm.
but you
At
can
all.
show control how you show up. So
Every
just to
time.
Christine's point, if she's feeling like somebody's perceiving you one way, you need to be able to show that you can be perceived a different way. Now, there was a
Exactly.
really
Just
great question from Katie in here, and this could be for later or for now, and it's up to you, Princess. But she asks how to deal with a leader constantly shutting you down before you respond with your explanation. And this is after my boss asking me for opinion on a serious, pertinent situation.
yeah, it's one of those things where you have to be careful, right? Because you, on one hand, knowing that you're triggered and other people are triggered should help you develop more empathy. But when somebody is asking you a question and simultaneously shutting you down, then you have to call it what it is. You have to say, excuse me, leader, you're confusing me. I heard your question. It's a serious question. I recognize it and I want to answer you. Unfortunately, I cannot answer you if you cut me off. So, do you need this answer or do you need to be alone right now?
That is so powerful.
It puts the control right back on them. Do you need the answer or do you need a moment to think this through? I'm willing to help you with whatever you need. You got to shut people down a little bit. And you can shut people down without being disrespectful or being perceived as being disrespectful because half the time we're not being disrespectful. We just want to be heard too. There are ways to neutralize and get people. I can give you a perfect example from my own life. I spent the first 22 years of my career before going into professional speaking and leadership development. I was an enterprise risk manager for different Fortune 500 companies. I worked in like high stakes risk management, emergency situations, everything. And I reported directly to the chief risk officer. It's a man who had 30 years of enterprise risk experience. And I was fairly, I was like in the still first like 7, 8 years of my career. So I had a lot to learn. And so, I recognized that my boss is valuable. Even though I didn't think he was always right, he was extremely valuable to me. And so that garnered a level of respect for him. Right. And so at one point, he was doing exactly what Katie was experiencing. Like he was asking me things, but talking over me, asking me to submit an article, and then he was like overcorrecting it. And I just asked him, I said, I got to ask you. And I said, I'm not trying to be funny, but do you want to hear my voice or do you want to hear your voice? And he stopped and he said, I want you to be accountable. I want to hear what you have to say. And I said, you have to allow it. And then I
Mm.
paused to see if he would allow it. If you're going to keep talking, I'm going to let you talk. And that's it. And it's not going to get solved. And then at the end, I'm going to say, where are we now? He
Katie
came to
says, pen drop.
you got to
Amazing.
stop filling in. Because a lot of times, see, we think we think we know what they're thinking, and we fill in our assumptions with just more talking. Sometimes you have to say what you have to say and be quiet. Just go on mute. Get your Beyonce on. Look, everybody pause. Go on mute. Okay. And just let people come to themselves and say, you know what, you're right. I do want to hear what you have to say. Okay. Let it breathe for a second. Here we go. And then you just go into it. I've been in that situation a million times because when you work in enterprise risk management, you're constantly surrounded by peers that are sometimes 10, 15 years older than you. Sometimes I'm the only woman in the room. A whole bunch of times I've been the only black woman in the room. And I know how to own that space without getting defensive about my identity because I know I deserve to be in a room. So,
I love that you're bringing this up about having a seat at the table because
mhm,
this is something that I so often feel a lot of the event marketers that are within our community, they want to have a seat at the table. They deserve a seat at the table. They need to be heard because
mhm.
they should not be just executors in planning something. They need to be part of it so much earlier on and be considered a strategist as they rightfully deserve to be. So I love that tool in really getting them to listen by calling them out on it,
Yeah.
saying what you're seeing.
Yeah, just say what you're seeing and say what you need. If
Mhm.
somebody's being demanding, you say, "Okay, I need if you want an answer, a good answer, the right answer, I need X amount of time to think that through." Well, we don't have that time. Well, you're not going to get the best answer. Is that okay? I just make people live with what they say they want and what they gotta have. I make them live with it. That's it.
Because
And that
oftentimes when they're demanding, it's contradictory.
is contradictory to the capacity of the organization. Sometimes it's contradictory
Mhm.
to the budget. I know how this stuff goes. And like, and so we have to be constantly reinforcing that there's an opportunity cost to everything. The thing that we can't afford opportunity cost though is on our mental health because sometimes you lose it and there's no getting it back, burnout. And I have to say this about burnout because just put it in the chat if you've ever, nobody's judging you, but if you've ever said, I'm burnt out, if you just say, it's me, you know, yes, I see lots of memes and yes, yes, just tell the truth. And so when you say you're burnt out, I want to tell you what this really is so that you don't trivialize it, right? Burnout can change the size, structure, and function of the human brain. It is a very serious condition and it graduates very quickly. That very common stress that we all feel when we start something new is called honeymoon stress or the honeymoon phase. That's normal. We can get over that really quickly. But then we graduate to stage two, the onset of stress. So think about that as like your first big deadline. Then you go into level three burnout is chronic stress. And chronic stress is, the word chronic in the English language has no good intent. Like there's no such thing as chronic joy. If it's chronic, it's ill and it's bad.
Sure.
So chronic stress, that's level three. What we call burnout in society is stage four. And that is where literally the way you make decisions starts to change. So for anybody in the chat saying it's me, it's time to get some help. There's so many ways to start the help. There are things that you can do physically, and then there's help outside of yourself that you can get and access today. And we'll share some of those. But when you get to stage five burnout, habitual burnout is the most serious because, and not to take the conversation dark, but in habitual burnout, that is where people start to experience suicidal and homicidal ideation. That is real. And that stuff is
It is
documented.
very real.
And so, and when you get to those stage four, stage five level burnout, it's very difficult to pull yourself out of it. You may not see it at that point because your brain literally starts to rewire itself and push you into more cycles of depression, anxiety, fear. It's really serious.
I say this all the time. Our work is our livelihood, but our
Mhm.
work is not life or death. It does not deserve
Not
your
this
death.
earth.
It deserves your life.
That's right.
Yes, exactly. And so you really have to find that balance and identify when you're starting to feel those things and how can you take care of yourself, all the while recognizing, I think that what keeps them going and trying to work through the burnout is the fear of what they would be losing.
Exactly. I mean,
The
and that's
fear of
real.
losing their job or not being perceived as valuable anymore or weak.
That's real. That's real. That's why you got to get to the truth behind it. And you have to know what your drive is, right? It's amazing to have a solid work ethic and, a drive. And then let's just be real. If you work in this space, if you're working on these huge events, there is a window that is go time, right? But when you're outside of that go time window, you got to have great habits first and foremost. And then in your companies, a lot of times, a lot of the burnout that we experience that's outside of our control has to do with how the company operates their systems, their protocols, and how well they enforce their policies. So there are things that you can champion in your organization. Most of my work, honestly, is with executives and leaders in the company because some of the solutions that I talk about on an enterprise level are things that if you're on the front lines, you're not in control of that. And I need to talk to the people who can change a policy and or put budget toward a certain thing or create a new healthcare benefit, things like that. And so that's why I try to, I usually work with executive decision makers in an organization because I'm not up here this is not just a talk. Like we're trying to affect change. And we look at my
You're actually
company,
making
we,
impact.
yeah, we look at the systems, we look at how people work, we look at the relationships between people, how different departments relate to each other. So we do the actual work once we're off stage, we do the real work. And but getting to the root cause of really for yourself, bringing it back to center of what is your drive, right? Like, what is driving you? Are you being driven right now to do the work that you're doing by something positive, by your creativity, by your intellect? Or are you being driven because somebody at your house when you were a kid or back in third grade told you were never going to be anything? Or if somebody told you, like how I was raised, my grandmother and my parents told me because I was a black girl at the time and I was going to be a black woman that I had to work twice as hard as white people to get half of what they had. And that came from people who loved me. They weren't trying to hurt me and they weren't trying to condemn white people. That's not what they were trying to do. They were trying to protect me and send me into the world with what they thought were realistic expectations. But what I learned for myself, and this goes for anybody on the call, that if you align yourself to any fear based thinking, if you align yourself to that, you will perpetuate the systems that are designed to marginalize you, plain and simple. So I don't ascribe to that. You know, my grandmother, God rest her soul, was born in 1933 in Mississippi. I'm not. I wasn't. And it doesn't diminish her lived experience, but it's just an acceptance of the radical truth that it's not my experience and I have a say in this point in time. So grounding yourself in your own context, accepting what's going on around you, but staying very true and authentic to who you are and exploring that deeply is how you get through this stuff. I promise y'all I live like this. Nothing lives rent free in my head except my husband and children. Hello.
I love that. That is so powerful. I just want to take a moment for and thank you for being open and vulnerable here with us because that is held in a safe space here and it is
Yeah.
valued. So thank you. And everything that you're teaching here is something I think all of us are going to be able to turn around, take, and apply directly in our day to day. But I also believe that this is the that ripple effect, right? For everyone here that can speak up and speak out and make the change within their organization, within their lives, and within the world. You know, if we really want to think big and globally, it's
Yeah.
all possible with these principles. So that's beautiful.
It really
Thank you.
is. I want to share one more thing that is within everybody's control, right? Your physical, the physical side. There is a practice that most people have never heard of called progressive muscle relaxation.
Mm,
Progressive muscle relaxation is a very it's simple, it's free. It's a process that and a practice that's been around for more than 100 years. It actually emerged out of Europe and then into the Americas after the last pandemic, right? 100 years ago, over 100 years ago now. And it's this idea that if you can lock into your mind, if you literally just inhale, exhale, and focus on one muscle group at a time, this is what you do. I'm going to just do a super quick demo. When you inhale, you contract one muscle group as you inhale, like your right hand. And when you exhale, you just let that same muscle group relax. So you inhale and squeeze, exhale and relax. And when you're relaxing, what you do is just notice what stress and what relaxation feels like in the right hand, what stress and relaxation feels like in the right shoulder, what stress and relaxation feels like in the right arm. And you cycle through your entire body. And as you're just breathing in and out very naturally, but deeply in and out, noticing with your mind. So you're doing mindfulness and a meditation at the same time. And you're stressing, relaxing all over the body. What this creates, Coty, is a muscle memory. It
mm.
builds muscle memory. You do this for like ten minutes a couple times a week, not even every day. And so, what will start to happen if you get triggered and you start to have a physical response, your knees locking, your shoulders tensing up, your eyes tightening, your mouth getting tight, all these things, your body will say, wait a second, is Cody being chased by a bear? And it won't see a bear. And it'll say, oh, she's just stressed out again. Calm down. And it will trigger an automatic relaxation response in your body. That is gold. I will at
It
the end of
really
this,
is.
it's a link on my website. I have a whole YouTube video that we produced, that my company produced to teach people progressive muscle relaxation because it's documented by the National Institutes of Health to relieve the symptoms, not the root cause, but the symptoms of depression, anxiety, insomnia, headache, and in some cases, cancer pain.
Wow.
There's nothing, and it's free, people, and people don't know about it. Learn PMR.
Okay, so learn PMR. I think that is a huge takeaway here because at the end of the day, and I see a lot of the individuals that are here live listening. I know that we have a lot that will listen after the show too. We are in a day to day so disconnected from our bodies because we're living in our mind, in our to do list. What's on our meeting list? What do we have next? What show? What thing is going on? And this is something that I had to learn over time as well, is really, using meditation, yoga, Pilates to really get connected with my breath and my body to handle the stress. Because the more aware you are in those muscles and what's being tense, it's like your body's feeling like it's in the fight or flight mode, when in
Constantly.
reality, it's just your brain telling you stories. And so you really have to take a deep breath, get connected, be aware of your triggers. So that's all really, I think, probably the most value out of everything in our conversations. But I don't want to discount the fact that you have all of these other stages in the framework. So we have about a few minutes, and I do want to also leave a few minutes for any other questions and some comments. Do you want to share like the picture of the remainder
Sure.
components of your framework and kind of run through that? I do
Absolutely.
think it's really important. And of course, we'll share all of the documentation after the fact
So,
too.
framework. And so, really, remember the point of the framework is that we disrupt the leadership capacity crisis. I believe that is possible. I've invested lots of money and time in researching these things. So, I hope you believe that it's possible. And so, after we identify the truth in our triggers, again, we focus on aligning internally, right? Getting aligned internally means that you know what your values are and what you're really committed to do, right? And that you know what's driving you. Again, you in the book we talk about this concept called toxic drive. In toxic drive, it's that's that point when your hustle becomes your harm, right? When you're not, driving toward this altruistic purpose or a clean motive, you are trying to prove somebody wrong, you are trying to win on somebody, you're trying to stun on somebody, as we say. And when you have those moments, you're falling out of alignment, right? When you're trying to seek validation from somebody else. So, aligning internally is all about aligning within yourself and then putting systems in place to align your teams. I have an entire framework. Each one of these has its own tools, right? Because these are leadership models for an enterprise level and a personal level. But aligning internally with your teams means getting aligned around, the challenges we're solving, making sure you have the right communication strategies, making sure you know how to identify pockets of conflict, and making sure you know how to adhere to whatever you agree that your team is going to accomplish. That disrupting the chronic stress and decision fatigue, that speaks to managing how we manage burnout at an individual level and then at a system level, like I talked about. Going into again, belongers and believers, as leaders, right? We have our own identities. We know our biases. Like this is 2025. I'm not arguing with anybody that we're not biased. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. That's how the brain actually works. It's how it protects you to make you
Mhm.
see differences in people, whether that's in race, texture, height, all the things. We notice these differences, but it's what we do when we notice those differences. It's the stories that are running. The stories that run in our minds is what causes us to make decisions toward people. And that's when we have to learn how to interrupt that. And we do it, again, keeping this fully centered on ourselves. And this is not self centering, this is self anchoring. Okay. You're anchoring yourself.
Mm.
Okay. There's a difference. You have to, if you're going to lead anything from events to global teams, you have to have influence. And you can only do that by creating safety and systems of believers and belongers around you. Again, we talked about, I hit on this earlier, this idea of eliminating conflict waste. Remember, you should never try to eliminate conflict. Conflict is a natural and inevitable part of every relationship. But at work, especially, and maybe in some of our relationships at home, we get into a lot of conflict waste, all that junk, the eye rolling, the sighing, the over talking, the bullying in the workplace. That stuff has to be called out. And I've called
Passive
executives out on this
aggressiveness. Hmm.
passive aggressive behavior, right? Polarizing language. You always X, Y, or Z, escalating too quickly, taking things, leapfrogging over chains of command that were put into place to eliminate and smooth out conflict. That is wasteful. And that, like I said, these are talks and workshops and experiences all into themselves. And then this whole concept around integrating technology with discipline. This is, first off, I'm an AI nerd. So this was a way for me to include AI in my model. That's how we met each other. I was actually giving an
Yeah.
AI talk at SEMA Summit, and I am a polymath and I'm an AI junkie. But I put this model, this piece of the framework in because as we go into the age of AI and it starts to bump up against our critical thinking skills, our empathy skills, we have to learn how to integrate technology with discipline. That means having some guardrails in our own lives, in the lives of your parents, the lives of our children, and in how we manage our teams because we don't want to take the humanity out of things. We like we're just, we need some humanity right now in the world.
Mhm.
So I
We
don't
sure
need a
do.
machine to replace that. But we need to, integrate technology, integrate it into our lives, but with discipline. That's the motto.
It's a beautiful model.
Thank you.
You've done amazing work putting all of this together.
Woo,
And I think it's so
good.
incredibly valuable. I think that this type of framework can literally change lives. It can change the trajectory of anybody's career and just their level of happiness and wellness, like overall wellness within our own bodies. It's just so incredibly impactful. So thank you for sharing. I do want to say, Amanda, she asked a really great question. She says, I think part of burnout is knowing the tools. But
Mhm.
being so overwhelmed, your executive functions can't think of what to do to help yourself. With
Exactly.
that in mind, what would be your advice or top tool to utilize as a go-to to start the de-escalation of triggers or snap you out of and break the automation? That's a really
So
great
you
question, Amanda. Thank you.
That's a brilliant question because that, and I wholeheartedly agree. If you get too far gone, you may not be able to recognize it. And so that's where community comes into play. Every single
Mhm.
person on here, and I don't care if these are people that are related to you, if they're your coworkers, if they're your friends, if they're a local support group, every one of you better get a personal board of directors, somebody around you that you allow to check you. You got to have some people that will look you straight in the eye and say, you are in trouble and you need help because I said so. And you're going to have to put your ego down long enough to acquiesce. If you put trusted people in place proactively, while you have your faculties, put those people in place now and trust that when they come to you, they're not trying to get over on you. They're not trying to shut you down. They're not hating on you, that they
It's
see
genuine.
something. It's genuine. And you've shared, and these are people that you have in your intimate circles, right? Remember, I talked about your affections? That's that A game. You got to surround yourself by people who can see the truth, who knows what triggers you, knows when you're in bad shape, and you got to be willing to listen when they take over. It's like that, healthy intervention, right? I have people around me in my life and I've kept them for, you know, I'm 45, I'm almost 46 years old and I know black don't crack, but auntie is getting up there. I have had friends around me since literally sixth grade that know how to check me. I got friends
Mm.
who could shut me down in a heartbeat. And I give them that because I know I've been in real burnout. I've been in the wedding is canceled burnout. I've been in I quit my job and didn't have a job lined up burnout. Oh, and I hate when Zoom does those goofy balloons. That's funny. I mean,
Honestly, it was like
laugh.
perfect point.
That's the other piece of it. Get some laughter, enjoy your life. You got to have some systems in place and having those people working out so you don't get so far gone, that really matters. I'm not talking about working out to be skinny, I'm talking about working out to use your bodily function to maintain your executive function. It is a part of it. And so I hope that answered your question and brought some light to it. But the key is thinking like a risk manager and being proactive, knowing that if you get to a point where you're too far gone, you might not see it yourself.
I feel like we need monthly therapy sessions with you, Princess. This is all
Listen, we can
amazing.
get a cohort started. Don't tell
I'm
me.
like,
We can get a
I think my
cohort
head's
started.
gonna fall off because I'm like nodding my head, feeling it the whole time. It's just been amazing. I think, I just want to take a moment also to celebrate that not only are you the CEO of Castleberry Global, but you have a brand new book called The Truth is in the Trigger. Do you want to just like pick that book up off your desk and show it because you just got it in?
Listen, when I tell y'all just came in the mail, the
This
truth
is
is
so exciting.
it's called The Truth is in the Trigger. Decode the triggers driving your stress and burnout. This is not like, a Harry Potter book. It's not 600 pages. It's 120 pages. It is short and to the point, just like me. And it gives you real examples of things that people have gone through. And it talks about some other hidden behaviors. I didn't get a chance to talk about them all on the call. I brought up toxic drive a little bit and conflict waste. But my two favorites actually are sinking ego and something called fixed gear leadership. Like for all the straight A students, you've been a straight A student since first grade, and now you don't know how to dial yourself back, even though you're in a situation that A doesn't warrant your full your fullness.
Sure.
You don't know how to turn it off sometimes. And so I talk about that in fixed gear leadership. But this book gets right to the heart of it. Right now, the Kindle version is available on Amazon. You have to, when you're working with Amazon, you got to go by Amazon's rules. So it takes a while for them to load your paperback. But I would love for you all to get the paperback version because that's how Amazon determines which books they're going to stock in the warehouse. But there's another site called bookbaby.com where the book is actually available today if you wanted the paperback version, but you got to pay for shipping. So if you're anti-shipping, just wait for Amazon to get their life in order. And so,
We'll make sure we share all of those links because honestly, Princess, I think that this is life-changing. I know I said that before, but truly life-changing teachings. And I appreciate you taking an hour out of your busy day. I know I was just kind of joking because you had that LinkedIn post for all of the different interviews and
yeah,
podcasts that you're doing this month. It's an honor
yeah,
to have you join us here, truly, and all of the audience too, everyone taking an hour out of their day and being honest and open and sharing their thoughts and their questions along the way. It just means so much because this truly is my little community that I like to say of people
yeah.
around me as well. And so I love seeing everybody all come together and thank you. And hugs and love to everyone. And I hope you all have a great day.